When Donald Church was diagnosed with abdominal cancer at the beginning of 2000, he would be promptly notified of a necessary surgery to potentially save his life. However, nothing could have possibly prepared him for what was to come. What his surgeons did to him would absolutely shock you. Donald Church was just your typical all-American guy. He was born and raised in Washington, where he would grow up to work in the building field and would later get married, have kids, and just live a calm, normal life. However, it was the year 2000 when he was hit with some very unfortunate news that he had a malignant tumor in his abdomen. So a few months later, in May 2000, he arrived at the University of Washington Medical Center in Seattle, Washington to undergo surgery to remove this tumor, as well as his appendix and part of his intestine. While stressful enough that you're told you have cancer, it was relieving to know that this surgery would be a big step in making sure he stayed alive. So on June 6, 2000, he left from Linwood, Washington for a 20-minute drive to the medical center to get this procedure done. The surgery went well, doctors sewed him up, and after a week spent in the hospital, he was sent on his way home. Donald gets home about 20 minutes away from the hospital, and he starts to notice something strange in his chest and abdomen area. He was just hit with this immense pain, and he was obviously expecting this after completing such a procedure. Surgeons reassured him it was all part of the recovery process, and understandable, you get surgery done, you feel pain for a bit afterwards. So Donald just dealt with it, hoping once he's all recovered, all the pain would be gone for good. But as the days went by, what Donald felt was not normal. It was not just your normal post-operative pain. It was excruciating, and it began hindering his everyday activities. Whenever he walked, he was in unbearable pain. If he bent over, he was in unbearable pain. He would go days without a bowel movement because he couldn't even simply use the bathroom without hurting. And doctors assured him this was all normal. There was nothing to worry about. But Donald was more than just worried. There was just this weird bulge in this area hurting with every move, and it became a daily cycle for him, as he would describe feeling it first in his abdomen, and then he felt it in his chest. There's just this strange pain that just would not go away. This obviously left him feeling hopeless. He knows he's recovering from surgery, but he never expected for his body to respond in such a debilitating way. It got to a point he was so distraught. One day he would go to his bathroom and at his home, and he would just lay straight on the floor and just start sobbing, and this became a common occurrence for him. The pain just got progressively more and more unbearable, and he started to think this might just be the end for him. After a few weeks go by, despite all the debilitating symptoms, Donald thought it was time for him to return to work. So on the morning of, he gets ready, arrives at his job, and he begins getting back to work doing building maintenance. However, all clearly wasn't well. Anytime Donald tried to do any heavy work, he would just struggle. He was still feeling pain and clearly felt weakened, and this led him to limit the usual things he would do at work in order to accommodate for the pain he was feeling. This was obviously frustrating for him, and again, he would go home feeling absolutely hopeless. Just a few days would go by, and finally the day came, 30 days post-operation, when Donald had a checkup appointment with his surgeons. And this is great. He's able to let them know what he's been going through for the past month, and certainly they would have an answer or a solution to all he's been dealing with. So he arrives at the University of Washington Medical Center, meets up with the doctors, and just lets it be known, hey, look, I'm in a lot of pain. It's extremely debilitating. I can barely move around. I can't properly work. Just tells them everything he's been dealing with this past month. However, to his dismay, the surgeons would adamantly assure him this is the norm. Everything you're experiencing is what is to be expected after a major surgery. Donald's now just confused. He's in excruciating pain, hindering his everyday activities. He can't figure out what's wrong with him, and the people he depended on to have answers are telling him this is what's supposed to be happening. So he goes home from this appointment and doesn't know what to do. He's still feeling the same way he did when he got in and got zero answers from his medical team. 3 more weeks go by, and Donald's condition was progressively worsening. He was unable to walk, bend, couldn't use the bathroom without struggling in pain, and it was at this point Donald's wife and mother finally convinced him to go see his family physician because these symptoms were not normal. So after 2 months of dealing with this immense pain daily, Donald books an appointment and heads over to see his family doctor at a University of Washington clinic. His doctor would do a standard check, ask him how he was feeling, and Donald would voice his concerns about what had been going on the past couple months. So the doctor checks his blood pressure, his pulse rate, his weight, just the normal checkup routine. And so while the doctor is in the process of examining Donald, doing a standard examination, he gets down to his chest area and he can't help but notice an oddly shaped lump in Donald's chest. Being obviously concerned with this odd lump appearing in Donald's chest, the doctor ordered a CAT scan with hopes to determine what may have caused this weird lump. So Donald goes home and would go in for his CAT scan a few days later, desperately hoping this scan will give him some kind of insight on what's been going on the past couple of months. So he gets to his appointment, gets dressed in a gown, enters the room, and he's placed in position to get the scan done. The technicians get him situated, get the scan running, and everyone waits for the image. Finally, when it was all done and the image would start loading on the screen, Donald would get up, eager to finally see the image of his chest. Once the image finished loading and Donald looks up at the screen, his heart would immediately drop. Nothing could have possibly prepared him for what he would see in the image of his chest. It was at this moment Donald had realized, for all these months, the excruciating pain he went through was not because of post-operative recovery, because when he looked at that image, all he saw clear as day was a metal rod the length of a foot long inside of his chest. As it turns out, during the operation to remove his tumor, surgeons accidentally left a 13-inch long metal retractor rod in Donald's chest and abdomen. All of the pain he felt was the result of a 13-inch metal rod poking and prodding his insides during every single movement. And so just a few days after this daunting discovery, Donald would now have to travel to the Swedish medical center Providence to get this instrument removed from his abdomen, not before setting off the metal detector at the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport and explaining to the security he has no weapons, just a 13-inch metal rod in his chest. Fortunately, the surgery went well and he had no permanent damage following the incident. The hospital took full responsibility for this error, and in November 2001, they paid Donald with $97,000 in a settlement for this callous mistake. Surprisingly enough, this actually wasn't the first time something like this happened at the University of Washington Medical Center Hospital. Between 1997 to 2000, there had been 4 other documented cases of surgical instruments being left inside of patients. While rightfully angry that such a thing could happen, Donald was more so relieved to have figured out this mystery and know that he was actually going to live. He would just hope that changes will be made to ensure that nobody goes through what he did. As a patient, you can never expect when doctors might make such a callous mistake. Always make sure to advocate for yourself whenever you think something deep down is wrong, because it could quite literally save your life, and in this case, it definitely did. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more strange and bizarre true medical case stories. Bye now.